The Kings get their first win of the season in a wild one against the Wild, with Kevin Fiala having a big game against his old team. The Kings look to make it two in a row tonight in Hockeytown. We'll preview the Kings against the Wings coming up on this edition of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Please like and subscribe if you're enjoying this content. At last check, we were around 760 subscribers. Thank you so much for getting us on our goal of making it to 800 by the end of October. My name is Eddie Garcia. I am your host of Locked On LA Kings. I've worked in sports media for almost 30 years. For the past 20 plus years, I've been at the Fox Sports Radio Network. And for the past 16 years or so, I've been a co-host of the Puck Podcast, a weekly NHL review show, putting out content, like I said, for about the past 16 years. Also a very passionate LA Kings fan for the last 30 years. So the Kings hit the road when we last left you for a 9-day, 5-team road trip, which began this past Saturday in Minnesota. We're going to look back at that game right now. We've also got a preview of tonight's game in Detroit, but we'll start by looking at the lineup that the Kings put out there against Minnesota, and a pretty usual lineup. Of course, the top line, Anze Kopitar, Kevin Fiala, and Adrian Kempe. Certainly more on Kempe and Fiala coming up. Second line of Philip Deneau, Trevor Moore, and Victor Arvidsson. We had the third line of Quentin Byfield, Alex Iafallo, and Gabe Vilardi, and the fourth line of Blake Lizotte, Brendan Lemieux, and Arthur Kaliev. The defensive pairs in this game were Mikey Anderson and Drew Doughty, Sean Durzi, and we had Alex Edler and Brant Clark as a pair as well. And Cal Peterson was in net for his first start of the year. So some thoughts on the lineup real quick. Obviously, very good to see Victor Arvidsson back in the lineup from illness that caused him to miss the game against Seattle. So good to have him on that back on that second line again. Arthur Kaliev on the fourth line doesn't feel right, but then again, who are you going to move down on that right side? You're not going to do it to Adrian Kempe. You're not going to do it to Victor Arvidsson. And because of the way he's playing right now, you're not going to do it to Gabe Vilardi. So for now, it just has to be, I think, Arthur Kaliev on the fourth line. Sean Durzi back in the lineup for the first time since making that big mistake in the final moments against Vegas, in which, of course, they let that one slip away in the opener. And Cal Peterson making his first start in net this season. So as far as what to look for going into this game after the two home losses to start the season, well, obviously we wanted to see a win. I mean, that was the number one thing by any means necessary. But three things I thought were pretty basic for the Kings in this game. Get off to a good start, play smart, and play more as a team. Well, the Kings sure got off to a good start in this one. Goals from Adrian Kempe, Gabe Vilardi, and Drew Doughty gave LA a 3-0 lead in the first period. But if you remember the last time the Kings played in Minnesota, they jumped out to a 3-0 lead against the Wild and then allowed the next 6 goals in losing that game late last season. This one looked like it might be a similar script. As I mentioned, the Kings got off to that 3-0 lead. Everything looked great. But then Minnesota would score the next 2 goals to make it 4-2. Alex Iafallo, though, would close out the scoring in that first period. So it was 4-2 Kings after the first period. Second period, the two teams would trade goals. Kevin Fiala and Matt Roy would score for LA. It was 6-4 after 2, so you're feeling a little bit better about it. But in the third period, Minnesota would score twice to tie it up at 6-6. Adrian Kempe, though, closed out the scoring with his second goal of the game, and the Kings recorded their first win of the season, 7-6. Am I thrilled the Kings won? Yes, I am thrilled the Kings won. Finally got that first win of the season. Was that a fun game to watch? Well, for me, it wasn't. I don't know about for you. If I was an impartial observer, if I didn't have a rooting interest, maybe that would have been a fun game to watch. But I was completely stressed watching that entire game, especially when we got out to the 3-0 lead and then allowed the next 2 goals. And then when it was 6-6, you're just feeling like I can't believe that we may lose this game. Fortunately, it didn't come to that. Fortunately, Adrian Kempe came up big with a late goal. And to their credit, the Kings were able to find a way to win this game. But that was a tough watch for me. I don't know about for you, but man, they do not make it easy on us, at least not yet. Okay, some takeaways from the game. Let's start off with the good. We try and stay positive here, and you have to start with Kevin Fiala. Maybe he was extra motivated to face his old team in the first game back in Minnesota against obviously the team that traded him this offseason. It is not hard to think that it didn't play some sort of role, but Fiala was great scoring the first goal as a King. Finished with a 3-point game with a pair of assists as well. His first goal as a King was a beautiful shot into the upper right corner of the net on a power play, kind of a bit of a broken play. There was a pass that didn't connect. The loose puck went to Adrian Kempe, who passed it over to Fiala, and the goaltender was moving, but still the shot placed up in the corner was fantastic. He also had the primary assist on Adrian Kempe's first goal, which was a really nice cross ice pass. That was his first point as a King. And then he had a secondary assist on Drew Doughty's power play goal. Fiala's puck possession was very good. Did a great job of holding onto the puck, especially in the wild zone and setting up his teammates to get into the attacking zone and then letting them get set up and move the puck around when he wasn't shooting. I said Kevin Fiala, and I was kind of, I don't know if I was too hard on him, but I was, I guess, hard on him for the penalty he took in the season opener. But I did say that I think we're going to see a lot more good than bad from Kevin Fiala. So we certainly saw a lot of good in this game. And this is the type of Kevin Fiala we need to see and hope to see for most of the season. Obviously, his best game is an LA King, but I think this is a great example of what the good Kevin Fiala looks like. A guy who's very creative, who's very effective, has a great shot, can skate and protect the puck, move around. I thought a really, really solid game for Kevin Fiala. Hopefully, it wasn't just a good game against his old team, although he is playing another old team coming up tomorrow. So maybe he'll have another good game against one of his old teams. But anyway, great game for Kevin Fiala. Great to see for the LA Kings. What else was good? Well, obviously, a lot of players contributed to this win. 7 Kings players had multiple point games. The top line saw Adrian Kempe get the first and last goals of this game. The third line saw Gabe Velarde and Alex Iafallo score goals. We had a pair of goals from defensemen and Drew Doughty and Matt Roy, and the Kings added 2 power play goals as well on special teams. So what was bad? Well, obviously you give up 6 goals, and it's hard to say that the defense wasn't bad. A couple of cases in particular, Marcus Foligno, who's a big, strong guy for Minnesota, got inside position on Anze Kopitar to score a goal in close. Very rare to see Anze give up position and get kind of out-muscled in front of the net, but that did happen on that play. Sean Dursey on the penalty kill wasn't able to cover the back door on a tap-in. He would certainly like to cover that. It's difficult when you're down a man and you're playing defense and you have to cover some different sides of the net. But you got to, if you're going to cover anything, cover that back door, because the Wild were able to get a tap-in goal on that one. The penalty kill was not good enough. Minnesota scored 3 power play goals. And I don't know what the face-off percentage was when the Kings were down a man and in their own zone, but it seemed like they lost just about every. It wasn't all of them, obviously, but it was a lot of them. A lot of the penalties, a lot of the face-offs in their own zone when they were down a man, it seemed like the Wild would win that face-off and set that power play up almost immediately. And that really makes it tough on a penalty kill to get any kind of momentum going, to get a clear, to get a line change. Guys stay out there longer than they want to, and that's just a recipe for failure when you do that. Cal Peterson is still not where he needs to be. This was his first start of the season. He did see a pretty high number of shots, 35 shots on goal, but he did have a couple of misplays in this one. Matt Zuccarello scored to make it 6-5 on the power play, but it was a pretty routine wrist shot from distance. Peterson was screened on the release, so he didn't get to pick up the puck immediately, but there really wasn't a screen in front of him. Just a little bit late to react. That was a tough one, but again, when it's a wrist shot from distance like that, those you need to stop more often than not. And then on the tying goal that made it 6-6, Cal went behind the net to play the puck. He didn't get it cleanly. It kind of got away from him. And then in a scramble to get back in front of the net, he and Drew Doughty collided. And then it was just a mad scramble in front of the net. I think all 5 Kings on the ice, including the goaltender, were in the crease at one point where it was just a loose puck and the Wild were in there poking away and hacking away at it and were able to get it in the net. So Cal's still struggling a little bit to find his game. But again, it was his first start of the season and he was, coming off a bit of an injury in the preseason, but he needs to be better. I think that's pretty obvious. We're going to have some final thoughts on the Kings' first win of the season. But first, the numbers don't lie. In the last decade, over 4 million people have chosen Simplisafe Home Security to protect their home. You don't have to earn the trust of that many people without doing something right. At Simplisafe, your safety is the only thing that matters. To protect you with cutting edge security technology, it's powered 24/7 by professional monitoring agents who always have your back. With 24/7 professional monitoring, Simplisafe's agents call you the moment a threat is detected and dispatch police or first responders in an emergency, even if you're not home or you can't be reached. Simplisafe blankets your home in protection with advanced sensors in every room, window, and door with hazard sensors that instantly detect fire, flood, and other threats to your home. Customize the perfect system for your home in just a few minutes at simplisafe.com/LockedNHL and get 25% off your SimpliSafe security system when you sign up for an interactive monitoring plan and get your first month free. Visit simplisafe.com. That's simplisafe.com/LockedOnNHL to learn more. There is no safe like SimpliSafe. All right. So, first off, as far as the first win of the year and what we feel about it, first and foremost, it's a win. And I can guarantee you this: I would much rather win 7-6 than lose 7-6. That is brutal to score 6 goals and lose on home ice. So, while it wasn't exactly what we're looking for from the Kings, and I'm sure the players and Todd McClellan, the head coach, will tell you the exact same thing, and they did allude to that after the game. This is a bottom line business, and however you can get it, you need to get it. And the Kings, after going 0-2 to start the season, needed a win, and they got to win, and that's all that matters. But that said, clearly the Kings aren't going to win many games where they allow 6 goals, and I doubt they're going to have many games where they're going to score 7 goals. So they still have some things, obviously, to clean up. Good news is that the mental errors and the bad decisions and the bad line changes, for the most part, were cleaned up from the first couple of games of the season. However, taking 7 penalties is way too many, and you do not want to be shorthanded 6 times in a game, which is what the Kings were in this one. So there is still some work to be done, obviously, for the LA Kings. I said before the season that I thought the Kings' top line of Kopitar, Kempe, and Fiala needed to lead this team and clearly lead this team. Last year we had the issue where it was kind of the top line and the second line were kind of 1A, 1B. And more often than not, you could have said the second line was really the first line, so to speak. And I said, with Kevin Fiala on that line now, with the year that Adrian Kempe had and Andre Kopitar being such an all-around good player, that line needs to be the Kings' top line pretty much night in and night out. And I thought that they absolutely were in this game. There's no doubt about that. And hopefully that continues a lot more this season. We had Adrian Kempe. Well, they all had 3 points. Adrian Kempe, Andre Kopitar, and Kempe all had 3 points in the game, so that was awesome. Kopitar with 3 assists, and I did want to mention that with those 3 assists for Kopi, he passed Dave Taylor and is now all alone in 3rd place on the Kings' all-time scoring list. Kopi now has 1,071 points. He is 84 behind Luc Robitaille for 2nd on the all-time Kings scoring list, and still 236 points behind Marcel Dion to be the number 1 point scorer in the history of the LA Kings. So hopefully Kopi can. I don't know if he's going to catch Luke this season. That would be a hell of a year for him. It would be great though if he did. But he might get close. He could get close to it with having a couple of snipers on his wings. Probably not. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Also, Brant Clark continues to look pretty good. He is still looking for his first NHL point. He has played in 2 of the 7 games, total of 9 that he can play at the NHL level before the Kings have to decide if they're going to keep him for the entire season or send him back to his junior team. And I had a thought that as much as I like Brandt Clark, I do wonder if the team might be better off with a more defensive defenseman like a Tobias Bjornfoot in the lineup. Clark's offensive abilities are attractive, but the Kings seem to have enough offense to win games at this point. They need to be more responsible defensively. So I wonder, and again, going into the season, goal scoring last year was an issue. And even though Kevin Fiala was being added and you thought that younger guys were going to step up, the way Gabe Velarde has really stepped up so far, and the way things are going, maybe the Kings need to, and there's still time, but maybe the Kings need to consider that option. But like I said, there's 9 total games for Brandt Clark to be able to play at the NHL level. He's played 2 so far, so there's 7 more to go before the Kings have to make a decision. But again, a thought that maybe early on the Kings don't really need as much from the blue line as we thought, because the forwards seem to be doing so well at scoring goals. And maybe we need to be a little bit more defensive on the back end. Just a thought. We'll see how it goes going forward. I also think we need to see more out of Cal Peterson. I certainly alluded to this already, because we know at some point he is going to have to assume a bit of a larger role in net. Right now, I don't think he's shown that he's ready to be that 1A, 1B type of situation. I think it is clearly Jonathan Quick is the number 1 goalie, and clearly he's the number 2 goalie. But as we say going forward, because of Quick's age, because you don't want him, if he is in fact going to be the number 1, which it looks like it's going to be, he can't carry the majority of the load. So again, Cal needs to be a part of this plan going forward, but he's not there at this point. So hopefully he can continue to get better as the season goes on, and can then carry a little bit more of the load on Jonathan Quick to where maybe they get at some point where they're actually alternating starts going down the stretch. So the Kings get their first win of the season, and they are back on the ice today in Detroit. We'll have a preview of the matchup in just a second, but first, want to invite you to check out Game to Game NHL. Every moment, every top performance, every result. Locked On Game to Game covers every game from across the NHL with local analysts that only Locked On can deliver. Follow Game to Game on Locked On NHL. It's available on Audacity's app, on YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. So the LA Kings are in Detroit for the first of back-to-back games. They're in Detroit tonight. They are in Nashville tomorrow. Again, it's a 9-day road trip against 5 teams. I mentioned last week that 4 of the 5 teams that they were playing made the playoffs a year ago. The one team that didn't is the team they're playing tonight, and that is Detroit. However, the Red Wings really upgraded their roster this offseason, and they are off to a 2-0 start to the season so far, albeit their 2 wins came against 2 teams that are thought to be teams that are not going to be very good this year, and that's the Montreal Canadiens and the New Jersey Devils. But Detroit's GM Steve Yzerman went out and added some key players this offseason, like new goaltender Ville Husso from St. Louis. They added forward David Perron from the Blues. He's been a guy who's been a thorn in the side of the Kings, regardless of different teams that he's played on. They picked up Andrew Kopp from the Rangers, former Kings draft pick Dominic Kubalik from the Blackhawks, and defenseman Ben Sherratt from the Senators. They will join last year's Rookie of the Year defenseman Moritz Seider, and also another rising young star in Mason Raymond. They also have some veteran guys you may have heard of from Detroit seasons past, Dylan Larkin, Tyler Bertuzzi, and also former King defenseman Oli Mata joined the Detroit Red Wings this offseason. So that is some of the lineup that the Kings are going to be facing. Again, it's a much improved roster for the Detroit Red Wings, and they're off to a 2-0 start. So even though they were not good a year ago, it looks like they're going to be a better team this year. So it could be a tough test for the Kings coming up tonight in Detroit. You would assume that Jonathan Quick will get the start tonight, and because Cal Peterson just started the other night, and they're playing the next night in Nashville. So very unlikely we're going to see Jonathan Quick on back-to-back nights. So we'll see if it's going to be Quick or Peterson tonight. Yeah, it's going to, like I said, back-to-back games coming up. You would certainly think the goaltenders are going to be alternating, likely Quick tonight and probably Peterson coming up tomorrow in Nashville. I did want to update you on the Ontario Reign, who were off to a 1-1 start to their season. They won their season opener on Friday 8-2 over the Abbotsford Canucks. New Reign captain TJ Tynan had a goal and 3 assists. Defenseman Jordan Spence also 3 assists in that game. And Marco Sturm, the former LA Kings assistant, now the head coach of the Reign, picks up the victory in his Reign head coaching debut. The team did lose on Sunday to the Bakersfield Condors 3-2. Samuel Fagimo had both Reign goals in a losing effort. So again, the Ontario Reign off to a 1-1 start to the young season, and we will keep you updated on the Reign as we go along. We have time for an email, and I love to get feedback and or questions from Kings fans wherever they may be. And I met listener Rich the other day at the Kings season opener, and he literally lives 2 blocks away from me. But it's always interesting to hear from someone who is in an unexpected place, like this email that we got. And this comes from Jason, and he is in Bali, which is an island in Indonesia. It's northwest of Australia. So you never know where you're going to find a Kings fan. But his email says, first of all, I'd like to thank you for doing an amazing job with the show. I look forward to each new episode. Having Jim Fox on was incredible. Keep up the good work. All right. I will do my best, Jason. He continues, I am one of many Americans scattered across the planet living in Bali, Indonesia. For the last 6 or 8 years, the NHL has put out a good product for making games available for us on Apple TV and other devices. The last 2 years, it has gone downhill, and now they have put out a service called NHL.tv, which replaces what worked great for years, which for the first 3 games has been unbearable. Streams quit mid-game, no pre or post-game or intermission broadcast, just a blank screen. The game literally just stopped with an error message with 2 minutes to go against Vegas. Yeah, we lost because of Jersey, but I would have liked to have seen it. I'm wondering if you have any way of getting in touch with the NHL, as every channel I have tried has not answered or paid attention to. They're charging $120 for a subscription, which after 2 years of not working due to COVID is pretty steep for me, but I'm a lifelong Kings fan, so I pay the price. If you have any ideas on how I can get in touch with someone who actually cares about us overseas fans that are being forced to pay for such horrible service, I would be grateful. I've tried all their customer service avenues to no avail. I've been leading the charge on Twitter, blasting them as well as the NHL and tagging even the NHLPA. Nothing. I know it's a long shot, but if you have any ideas, it would be welcomed. And again, that was Jason, the Kings fan in Bali, Indonesia. Jason, thanks for the email. And I'm not sure if I can help you or not, but I'm willing to give it a try. I always mention this in the open when I kind of introduce myself. I've been the co-host of a show called the Puck Podcast for over 16 years. And we have actually a pretty strong international following. We have a lot of listeners in Australia, which is not too far from you, and a lot of listeners in England and other places in between. So I'm going to reach out to them and see if they have any ideas. And I'll also obviously float the idea here on this show. I know we have John in Tokyo who listens, and he's an overseas Kings fan. Maybe he has some better options for you, perhaps, or maybe some better answers. I'm not sure about that, but if anybody is an international listener and is a Kings fan and has any thoughts on how we can help out Jason in Bali, Indonesia, you can email me, LockedOnEddie at gmail.com, EDDIE, LockedOnEddie at gmail.com. And Jason, we'll see what we can do to help out. But awesome to hear from a Kings fan in Bali, Indonesia. And that I don't know if that was a good or a bad thing that you were watching the season opener and it just died before the incident there with Sean Jersey at the end of the game. But yeah, I'm kidding, but I'm sure that would have been very, very frustrating in a tie game. And suddenly the feed goes out, and then you find out later that they lost the game in regulation. So we'll see what we can do to help you out, Jason. Thank you for the email. Coming up on tomorrow's show, we're going to recap tonight's game against the Red Wings and preview Tuesday's game against Nashville. And again, if you want to send me an email, one more time, the email address is lockedoneddie@gmail.com. Also, we are on Twitter at LockedOnLAKings, and there's an Instagram page too if you're interested in that, and it is at Locked On LA Kings. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. Now make your second listen Locked On NHL. Locked On experts give you a daily 30-minute podcast of all things NHL all year long. Stay up to date on everything in the hockey world. That is Locked On NHL, your daily 30-minute NHL podcast. So happy the LA Kings were able to get that first win of the season. I am so glad I didn't have to do this show and talk to you about the LA Kings being 0-3. Things feel a lot better since they got a win, but still a lot of work to be done and still a big road trip to finish up. Got Detroit tonight and then Nashville tomorrow. A couple of big games. Hopefully we'll be talking about a couple more wins on tomorrow's show. Thanks for joining me for Locked on LA Kings. I'm Eddie Garcia. We'll always close out the show by saying, go Kings, go.